Hey there folks, Mr. Finley here. This is a short video on the design process for set design. It goes into a little bit more depth than the general set design stuff that was mentioned in the overall design process video. The thing to keep in mind is when you design a set, it can't just look good. There's actually a number of different things that a set has to do practically in terms of for the director and for the actors, and also in terms of giving the audience information. Remember, the set is the first thing the audience sees as the curtain comes up. And so a lot of information that the audience needs for the play is going to be contained in that set. So we're going to look at a checklist. I'm going to try and put the checklist up here. So things that the set needs to express. The first is the mood and spirit of the play. Every play has a tone. Some of them are really comic, some of them are very serious and dark, and the set needs to reflect that. We need to see in the set the sort of play that this is going to be. On a very basic level, is it realistic or is it non-realistic? If it's a very realistic play, like Doll's House or All My Sons, the set needs to be realistic. If it's a very non-realistic play, like some Shakespeare can be, or plays of Brecht or Ionesco, then the set itself can be non-realistic. But even within that, even if you have a very realistic set, different sets provide a different tone. For example, I'll show you an example here. Here are two sets. They're both realistic. They both look like real things. The top one is for a big funny comedy called A Flea in Her Ear. And you can see the set itself is very sort of comic and light. It's got those swooping curtains on the left side of the picture and lots of curves and lights. And it lets you know that this is a sort of bright, fun thing. It's not very serious. It's not very dark. Look at the set on the bottom. Again, also realistic, but very, very dark, very ugly, very gritty. This is for a play called Endgame. Endgame is a very, very dark, very depressing play. And so we understand that tone just from looking at the set itself. So that's the first thing that the set needs to do. It lets us know the mood and spirit of the play. Then it gives us, the audience, some practical information. It lets us know the historical period of the play. When does this take place? Setting is a huge thing that playwrights use, and the set lets us know the setting visually. Is this, the house of the future? Is this, a barn sometime in the 1890s? Those pieces of information are going to be necessary to understand the play, and we let them know through specific historical detail through the set. Similarly, we let them know the locale. A house in Chicago looks different than a house in New Orleans, which looks different than a house in Norway. And it also lets us know the socioeconomic and background and personality of the characters. If you've got characters who are very rich and very uptight, that may be a big part of the play, and we would see that in their surroundings. Similarly, if we have characters that are very sort of low and rough, that's going to be important to the play. We see that in their surroundings as well. If we'll take a look here at these two sets. First of all, you can see we can tell the historical period of these plays. That top one, the rough-hewn wooden beams, lets us know that this is not a modern house, but probably something rather older, mid-1800s perhaps. If you look down below, all of that glass, that sort of greenhouse look, again suggesting a period probably a little bit before the modern era, maybe the turn of the century. It also lets us know a lot about the socioeconomic background, right? The top one, this is not a rich family who's living there. The bottom one, obviously very rich family. So we know all about the characters based on the sets before the characters even open their mouth. The next sort of practical thing that the set lets us know is the season of the year. In some plays, that might be important. In the plays of Tennessee Williams, for example, they always take place in the summer. The characters are really hot, and that heat, that discomfort is actually a really important part of the play. And so elements in the set, things like plants and things like that, let us know about the season of the year as well. Moving on from those practical concerns of what the set tells the audience that they need to know about the play, then we come to the point of, does it look good, right? They're going to be staring at that set the whole time, and therefore it has to look good. The way we say that, instead of saying does it look good, is does it have the elements of good composition? And those elements are gone over in the videos in the first Power Focus area on principles of design, things like balance and tension and contrast, line, all of those kind of things. If a set has those things, then it's going to look good because it will have those elements of design. Finally, a set has to be practical for the show. It needs to meet several very practical needs. The needs of the director, first of all. The director may have certain things that they need to do that the set needs to accommodate. If, for example, you're doing a musical and the director wants big dance numbers, well, there's got to be enough room on the set for people to be dancing. It can't be like lots of furniture and lots of walls. Similarly, the director may require certain things of the script. In the play Lend Me a Tenor, for example, there need to be 6 doors on stage. The script requires it, and the direction requires people entering from one door and exiting out another door, and therefore that has to be built into the set. The needs of the actors are also going to be important. There needs to be enough space for them to do what they are blocked to do, and to do it in a safe way. If you can't have the bed and the wall right next to each other, if they're supposed to be running around it, people will be running into the wall. That might be funny the first time, but eventually the actors are going to get hurt. So the needs of the director, the needs of the actors need to be taken into account right at the start of this process as the design starts being put together. The technical demands of the production as well. There may be certain things that are required technically by the production. A certain play, for example, may have 5 different scenes that require 5 different sets. So you've got to technically figure out, okay, how are we going to represent 5 different places? Do we have 5 sets that rotate through? Do we use furniture? Do we use curtains? How do we do these technical requirements that are required by the script? The final thing, and it's really important, is does it meet the fiscal and time budgets? Every show, there's a set amount of money that you have to build the set, and there's a set amount of time. There's an old joke. You can have it fast, cheap, or good. Pick 2. You can't have all 3. If you want it fast and you want it good, it's going to be expensive. If you want it cheap and you want it fast, it's probably not going to be very good. Things like that. Working at a school, we have a little bit more time than many places do. We have about 6 to 8 weeks to build a set, but we do have very little money, technically. We have a bit of money, but not very much. So if it's going to be good, we have to figure out how we can fit it in that time and that budget. And those things go into the design process itself. That's not just a consideration when you're building the set, but it's a consideration when you're actually designing it. If you're designing a set that has 5 different turntables and things, that may be going over budget. Really quickly, I just want to go over the way that these designs are then transmitted. This is, again, a little bit more depth than we mentioned in the design process video. The design starts with sketches. They're very light. We sometimes call these thumbnail sketches, just to give us some idea of what the set is going to look like. And if the director says, yeah, that's great, that's what we want, then typically what the designer will do is they'll build a model, a scale model of the set that can be looked at from many different sides. We aren't going to be building models here in this class because it's a very time-consuming process. You could have whole college classes just on model building because you want that model to be as close to the real thing as possible. But once the model is then shown to the rest of the team and they say, yes, that's great, then there are 2 types of technical documents. There's the ground plan, which is the top-down view to scale of the set, and then there are elevations. These are straight-on views that show the various measurements of things like flats and platforms, so that they can be built properly. You certainly will be designing and creating ground plans and elevations this year. So that's some information on the design part of set design.